Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another Premier Pundits live podcast. Well, a man down tonight, Mr. Wilson. He's having a late fitness test, but I am joined by my esteemed co-host and colleague from Shoot the Defence, Stel. It is Stel, isn't it?
Yes.
Stel.
Thank you, Jesus. It's coming near Christmas. That's why you're being very, very generous.
I am, mate. I am. Look, it just goes to show I do listen. I do take on board everything that you do say. Slightly different format tonight because we haven't got the font that is all injury knowledge. Mm-hmm. We're going to focus primarily on FPL in this slightly abridged version of the podcast. Look, I'm going to forget my fantasy troubles in recent times, and I know you've been doing quite well yourself. Yeah, on the back of strong game weeks in 10, followed that up with another solid performance in week 11. But how did week 12 go, my friend?
Right. Well, cast your mind back to last week's episode, and I was mulling over who to replace Aubameyang with. The show before that was Aubameyang. Last week was who I was going to replace. Helder Costa of Leeds United.
Yes.
And we were talking about Almiron. We were talking about Jonjo Shelvey, Saka. I thought, you know what? I'm going to bite the bullet and go with Ndombele, who was fit. He played on Thursday. We came off the bench on Thursday in the Europa League. And I figure, he's got to start against Crystal Palace. Palace are very physical in the middle of the park, especially with Kuyat, especially with Milivojevic, possibly MacArthur. I thought, let me put him in there because I didn't think Lo Celso was going to play. Lo and behold, Ndombele played, got me 3 points. Lovely. But I don't know whether this was a schoolboy error or just me taking my off the ball, or maybe the news breaking late about Jota. Got that injury, 6 to 8 weeks. I already made my free transfer. And by the time I got the opportunity to make a change with him, it was too late. So I just had to go with what I had. I put him on the bench. Obviously, he wasn't going to get many points. And the average was 51. I got 46. And I was absolutely livid. And the reason why I was absolutely livid is because I thought Spurs were going to beat Crystal Palace. So I thought Son was going to get me maximum points. I thought Timo Werner was going to score at the weekend. He didn't. Fortunately, Kyle Walker kept a clean sheet, which is good. Fortunately, he played. He didn't play yesterday against West Brom. De Bruyne got me 6 points. Reguilon got me 2 points. Kasper Schmeichel, who I put in goal ahead of Leno, got me 7. So, all right, I was 5 points below the average. Had Jota played, he'd have definitely got me points. So I'm going to take that one on the chin. But unfortunately, Ben, this week, I get the feeling it might be a better. I say unfortunately, I think it might be a better week for this midweek.
Look, I'm with you. I only managed 2. I was only 2 points better off than you. 48 points.
Right.
Feel your pain. Look, don't hit yourself too hard over Diogo Jota. That was because we had the early deadline on Friday because of the West Ham Leeds game.
That's right.
And Jurgen Klopp wasn't giving much away on the situation with regards to those players who had picked up knocks in Denmark. So it wasn't until whispering started to sort of come to the surface on Saturday tea time that Jota was going to miss the game. We still didn't really know the severity, but there was talk of ligament damage, and that wasn't really confirmed until a Sunday morning. And I think that was broke by Portuguese outlet Record. So, like I say, I'm a Jota owner, and I had him on the bench anyway. I wasn't 100% sure that he was going to start. But, mate, it was a hard game week. I mean, look, mate, the game week 12, and we'll touch upon 13 as well, but you mentioned Timo Werner. And I've kept faith with Werner now for a number of game weeks. I think I brought him in on my wild card, so he's probably been in and around that squad for almost 5 weeks now. He's been hugely disappointing. And again, after blanking last night, then, he's on the slippery slope. He's one that could be getting the shepherd's hook ahead of, round 14, especially given the fact that Lampard's talking about fatigue. He's talking about resting players, possibly rotation. He's missed some opportunities
Yeah.
And obviously we've seen the return of Pulisic as well. And Hudson-Odoi and Hakim Ziyech will be training ahead of, I think it's Brighton. They're playing on Monday.
Chelsea got West Ham. They haven't got West Ham.
Is that who it is? Was
I
it
think they got West Ham.
Monday night? So one that's definitely on the tightrope. I mean, how about yourself with Werner?
It's difficult for me to say at the moment because he's a world-class talent, but he's not showing world-class form. And again, it could be because he's new to the league. It takes time to settle. I get it. I understand. But on the flip side, Chelsea create opportunities, and he's been missing those opportunities. The one against Leeds, criminal, absolutely criminal.
Two against the one that hit the bar. I think
2 yards out, not even that. Was.
I mean, the one that was about 5 yards out that he hit straight at Mesley as well from the pass, which was a shocker. Absolute shocker. It's a lot of money in a striker who isn't coming in, and Chelsea have dipped a little bit just in terms of their form. We're looking at 9.4 million. You know,
it's a lot of money.
If you were looking elsewhere, who would be the sort of players that are registering on your radar?
It's difficult to say. So let me look at the app right now. Actually, while I'm doing this, so he's in at 9.4. Replace. Okay, let's go to price affordable. I wouldn't pick Gabriel Jesus. The way that City are playing at the moment, he wouldn't go in my team.
And also with Sergio Aguero, edging his way back, he's obviously going to be a rotation risk. For me, this was an opportunity for Gabriel Jesus to prove himself within the City team, for him to convince Pep that he didn't need to go out and spend big money, either as a viable option to rotate and rest Aguero, and ultimately prove to be Aguero's replacement, who, the chances are he's probably going to leave at the end of the season. So I'm in total agreement with Gabriel Jesus.
The player I'm tempted to pick is Richarlison. Scored tonight against Leicester, big win for Everton. The problem with him is he's too inconsistent. He'll have a run of games where he'll score a few goals and then he'll go quiet, or he'll get an injury, or like we saw against Liverpool, got sent off. So of all the possibilities, Richarlison is definitely up there. Who else is there that can afford? Danny Ings possibly had a good game tonight against Arsenal, but didn't really have many opportunities. In all fairness, Callum Wilson is another one. Although Newcastle got thumping tonight. Sorry to bring that up.
I mean, his record, and he picked up the assist tonight as well. I just question Steve Bruce's tactics sometimes, which is what I mean. I was a Callum Wilson owner. I had him in for 2 games, and then he suffered that hamstring injury. Got him out, and just reluctant to put him back in. I mean, how about going to somebody like an Ollie Watkins?
I've got him already.
You've got Watkins already?
I'm tempted to select Patrick Bamford. He's guaranteed games.
He is. Look, I will give him one, a bit of credit. The fact that I think was that his 8th goal maybe tonight. He's possibly the worst striker that I've seen in my life.
Really?
Even
worse than Andrea Silenzi at Nottingham Forest in the early 90s.
Was he Premier League?
Yeah. He replaced Stan Collymore, I believe.
Jesus, wow, that was a downgrade. I mean, I tell you what, mind you, that performance from Sebastian Haller on Friday night as well takes some beating. I don't know if you've seen the game. But wow, he is.
He led the line very well as a lone striker, very well. But I don't know, right? You see, this is the thing. I'm tempted to go with Richarlison. I'm tempted to go with Bamford. But based on form, and you're going to laugh at this, Benteke scored again tonight.
Look, of them, why not? Do you know what? I've heard people talk about Joe Linton from Newcastle as a possible squad. So, Benteke isn't, out the realms of possibility. You
Yeah.
see, so Benteke's already over the scoring down at the London Stadium.
Yeah, he scored against West Ham. Scored in the 35th minute.
He's a player that I think he needs to prove to himself, but also prove to Palace supporters that he's still capable of producing.
Yeah.
With Eze, with Zaha, and then with the support that you've got. I mean, they've got some decent attacking options. Palace, you've got the likes of Batshuayi, you've got Ayew, players who can come, all of that could come into the attack.
But the thing is, Ben, with Crystal Palace, and don't get me wrong, by no stretch of the imagination am I saying that they're a one-man team, but they are not as potent or as incisive going forward when Zaha isn't in the team or when he's not in the mood. And it just shows how vital he is to the club that when he's not in the team, they struggle. I think last season, didn't they go 8 or 9 games without a victory when he wasn't in the team? Something along those lines. I might be wrong. They went through a really bad patch, and that coincided with him not being in the starting lineup. Now, I'm not saying again that he's injured. He does take a knock because he will. People are very physical. Opponents are very physical with him. Stop Zaha, then you stop Crystal Palace. So the supply line dries up. There's more expectancy on Eze, who is a very, very gifted footballer. Don't get me wrong, but it's his first season in the Premier League. He came with a big fee, so it's a psychological element. Then you're asking the others to chip in, like your Ayus, as you mentioned, etc., etc. So, yeah, it would be tempting to put Benteke in because of the opportunities that he gets. But having said that, I'm looking further down in the list. Cavani's not fit. He's not. I think he's out injured. But Oliver Giroud, whenever he comes on for Chelsea, he always creates something, or he gets a goal, or really makes a difference. And he's one of the most underrated footballers in the Premier League at the moment, Ben. And in all fairness, mate, I've been saying this for a very long time. If you look at the type of goals Giroud scores, the majority of them are one touch. It's always the first touch finish. He rarely controls the ball in the box and hits it. It's always first time. Just try and watch a catalogue of his goals, and that's what he does. But he also brings players into play with his physicality. So I'm really, really tempted to swap Werner for Giroud now, think about it.
I mean, looking at that Chelsea attack anyway, if you were to pick anybody who you would say is a nailed-on starter, then it would be Giroud. Because everybody else is dipping in and out of form a little bit. You wouldn't expect Pulisic to play every game, given his injury problems. Abraham dipped, and then obviously Giroud scored the Champions League hat-trick, which was in contention, and he's really grasped that opportunity. So, look, I agree with you in terms of Giroud as being a really viable option. Cheap weight, 6.7 million ownership in terms of the differential. He's still only owned by 1.4% of the community. Which when you consider what he's been doing and delivering, I think it's a well underused and underutilized resource. Because if he bangs, you're going to see some big jumps in your overall rank. I mean, does the possible return of Abraham or maybe Giroud's age go against him, do you think, heading into this fixture period?
I think at this moment in time, as you mentioned, with the fatigue, with the injuries that Chelsea are getting, Frank Lampard really needs to utilise the experienced heads, and he also needs to trust the players who have given it their all since being there with him as head coach. Don't forget, Giroud came in at Chelsea from Arsenal because Arsenal wanted to sign Aubameyang. That's the only reason why he left Arsenal. He wanted to stay. But he went to Chelsea. He won the Europa League with them. He did fantastic last season, I believe. And this season, he's continuously proving people wrong. And I think it's sad because I remember when he joined Arsenal from Montpellier and he had the nightmare debut. I think it was against Sunderland. He missed about 3 or 4 opportunities. And people were getting on his back. And I remember there was that stat where he went 12 games without a goal, 11, 12 games without a goal. And again, people were saying he's not good enough. Then he scored that fantastic goal against Crystal Palace. And all of a sudden, his career changed. He was called up for the World Cup squad for France, started on the bench first couple of games. The moment he was selected by Deschamps, the whole dynamic of France changed. They'll get more out of Pogba, more out of Griezmann, more out of Mbappe. And it's no coincidence that Giroud's presence, be it his play on the ball or off the ball, or just him being in the box at the right place at the right time. I don't think he scored in the World Cup, but as I said, his presence was enough.
You touched upon something that I was going to read with regards to Didier Deschamps and France themselves. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of question marks from some quarters with regards to Giroud, and because he's not able to nail down a regular starting berth domestically, yet at international level, he's always one of the first names on the team sheet. And when you consider some of the attacking options that Deschamps has at his disposal, but he keeps on going back to default, Giroud. I mean, that just goes to show how much how high he is held in regard across there, and the belief. And I think he's 100% that. When every time he goes on that pitch, he gives it his all. And I like him as a pick.
The thing is, but what we also have to take into consideration is that defending is almost a lost art these days. When you and I were growing up, let's talk about the early years of the Premier League. And I know people will be watching thinking, we go granddads, but we had Tony Adams, we had Pallister, we had such top defenders.
Stuart
Pearce. You want to go to the mid to late 90s when United had your Jaap Stams and Arsenal had the famous back four. Liverpool had a decent back line. Aston Villa with Paul McGrath in the early 90s. These days, you look at the Premier League defenders, and I'm talking about ones that are fit and playing right now. How many of them could you say they would walk into any team, United's treble team, or Man City's team that won the league at Cantor a couple of seasons ago? Can't think of any, really. So the quality of defending has gone down, which leads me to believe that experienced strikers like Giroud, who are poachers, that know how to bring players into the game by dropping deep or being a physical presence, being good in the air, knowing when to bring the ball down, knowing when to lay it off, knowing exactly where to be in the box at the right time. It's not just instinct, and it's experience. And Chelsea, from an attacking perspective, don't really have that experience if you think about it. Abraham is early 20s, Pulisic the same, Werner early 20s, I'd say, 23, 24, there or thereabouts.
Yeah,
if I'm not
and also coming into the league for the first time as well.
Precisely. So you need that presence. Don't get me wrong. They've got Thiago Silva at centre back, so they've got that experienced head in the back line. In midfield, you've got N'Golo Kante, that's won a World Cup, that's won 2 Premier League titles. So you've got that Jorginho, obviously, Kovacic, there's your experience. But when you're talking about up front, a player that's able to hold the ball up, knowing when to lay the ball off, play it to your wide men, get them involved in the game, or just to talk or unsettle the defenders. That's what Giroud does. He offers something completely different to what all the other attacking players Chelsea have. They're all similar if you think about it.
Yeah. Look, I'm with you. My only concern is if I'm looking at players for my team, I'm trying to nail down starters first and foremost, and then I'm thinking how many minutes are they actually going to play. And I want, that's always been the issue for me with Sergio Aguero. I want him to play 90 minutes. I know Sergio Aguero could get a hat-trick within a first half, but the fact he's always getting, substituted around 60, 70 minutes to be protected by Pep has always put him off. And that's just that sort of nagging feeling I have with Giroud as well. And also the dip in form from Chelsea is a slight concern. I see back-to-back defeats. I think it's Werner that's going to be walking the plank this game week. Stepping to Jamie Vardy isn't something that I'm really going to consider. Leicester lost again tonight. Their form is just too hot and cold, too indifferent. More than capable of getting a great result, but I just want a little bit of consistency there. So it looks like downgrading somewhere. Are difficult to come by. I'm clutching at straws, if the truth be known. Calvert-Lewin grabbed himself another assist tonight. Even when Everton weren't playing, well, he was always in and around the goals. Provider got himself a couple. I've
had him in my team since the beginning of the season, and that's largely because of Carlo Ancelotti. If Carlo Ancelotti wasn't their head coach, I wouldn't play Calvert-Lewin. But Carlo Ancelotti knows he knows a striker. I mean, he's managed the likes of Inzaghi, Shevchenko. He's played alongside the likes of Van Basten, so he knows what a striker needs to be. And if he's put all that faith in Calvert-Lewin as predominantly a central striker, which is what he is at the moment, he's carried them this season, hasn't he? So he was an immediate selection at the beginning of the season.
I felt I missed the boat on that one. Felt like I've come to the party a little bit too late. But looking ahead to the Christmas period, in terms of what your strategy be in and around your team and in particular your bench, given that we'll see high amounts of rotation, we will see games with quick succession. So, players who are picking up, knocks and niggles won't be risked. Are you looking to implement any kind of strategy to try and sort of navigate your way through the festive minefield?
It's a difficult question to answer, Ben, because obviously we can't foresee the future and see which players are getting injured. In all fairness, I'm going to try and steer well clear of Liverpool players, and that's because of their injury record. And I know Salah's got points tonight, and fine, great. They're going to get you points because they're a fantastic football team. But as I learned the other day, the news about Jota's injury, how they're keeping their cards close to their chest, I can't rely on people such as yourself anymore because they released this news so late. So I'm going to stick to players that I can trust, teams that I can trust. I'm going to look at the league table more than I ever did. I'm not leaning towards selecting more Southampton players because as great as they've been this season, watching them tonight against Arsenal, they were probing against a team with 10 men and they couldn't get anything on target, really. I think Leno had 2 saves to make after Gabriel got sent off. So in terms of their mentality, I'm not sure if I'm going to go with them. And let's be honest, who have they got the weekend? They've got Man City at home. City got points to prove, especially after yesterday's result. I'm not sure if they'll get a win. I'll probably end up biting me on ass because I think they beat them last season, didn't they?
I think it was 1-0 during Project Restart. I mean, that's right. It's not the teams up the top of the table that Southampton struggle with. It's the ones down the bottom. The Arsenals of this world. So
there you go. Everton have got Arsenal at the weekend, and I know Arsenal scored tonight, and they broke that hoodoo. But at the same time, Everton are going to this game high in confidence, which is what I'm thinking. Maybe Richarlison is probably the better bet to select ahead of Timo Werner, because look, Arsenal are going to be without Gabriel at the weekend. He got sent off tonight, which has got me -1 because he's in my team. So they're going to have to go with David Luiz and Rob Holding.
I mean, you have got Mustafi in there, but I mean, Gabriel celebrates his 23rd birthday on Saturday as well. I mean, coincidence?
Well, it wasn't a straight red, was it? So
exactly. I mean, that's even better. He just misses one game. He gets, he gets a few beers on Friday night. But for me, over this festive period, I think the best bit of advice, what I would say, is try to maintain a strong bench. Like I say, there will be a few surprises chucked in along the way. So you try to pick, there are a lot of budget options out there in terms of getting players who are starting for clubs, and because what you don't want is, to be playing game weeks with 9 and 10 players. You want to have your full complement, your full starting 11. And you can still, pick up bargains in and around that £4.5 million mark for players. Look at that Burnley backline. There's options in there that you'd be to stick some in. Even Sheffield United, I know they're the opportunities, even just to pick up a couple of points, 2 to 3 points. It's certainly better than nothing. So that's what I'll be looking to do, is making sure that I've, as close as possible, got 14 or 15 players with a goalkeeper, all who are more or less regular starters for the team. And if the inevitable rotation does occur, then coming in from the bench. Is there anybody else within your squad that you may be looking to shift on this period?
Let's have a look. Let's have a look at this team. So my midfield, I'm fairly happy with De Bruyne, Zaha, Son, and Ndombele. My two up top are Calvert-Lewin and Timo Werner. So I think Werner's going to be the one to make way for Richarlison at the weekend. My bench is pretty good. I've got Leno, Ruben Neves. I think he started yesterday, didn't he, against Chelsea, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he did.
There you go. And Ollie Watkins. Now, Ollie Watkins intrigues me because, again, he started the season so well, scored that hat-trick against Liverpool. He had a nightmare against West Ham, and he's kind of dipped in form a little bit. Played all right against Aston Villa, but they've got West Brom away at the weekend. And West Brom, who strangely sacked Slaven Bilic yesterday, even though I think they were ready to brief the press before the game that they were going to get rid of him, win, lose or draw. They brought in Sam Allardyce, haven't they? So
That's Sam,
yeah, so we know what kind of system they're going to play against Aston Villa, especially with Jack Grealish in decent form.
I mean, not the concern, but obviously Watkins is now off penalties. It either looks like it's going to be El Ghazi if he's on the pitch, or Jack Grealish. So that was something to consider after he missed 2, and I was very careful not to get suckered in to an Aston Villa treble up, as a lot of people did after that, on the back of that Liverpool result. Jack Grealish is the obvious choice. The other one, a lot of people seem to be going Martinez and Ollie Watkins, but like I say, I resisted, and I think I'm happy overall with that decision again. When players are coming into the Premier League, you can expect maybe the form to be a little bit indifferent, a little bit in fits and starts, a little bit streaky. They arrive with a big bang, that wave of enthusiasm. Then it'll sort of dip again, and then it may just take one way, puts it in off the back of his head, or bounces in off his arse, and he kicks on again for a few games. But I see Aston Villa a little bit like Leicester, or just a little bit too inconsistent for me at this moment.
Well, I think Douglas Luiz is missing, isn't he?
He is. Him and Matty Cash both suspended for the game on Thursday night. Well, he's 50-50, but he's certainly not a player that I would expect to start, given the fact that he's missed a few weeks. So he could make the bench and possibly, back in contention for game week 14. So, but he is a player that's on my bench. And I've been pleasantly surprised with him. I honestly believe that he thinks he's in with a chance of making the Euro squad if he puts in, a good 6 months worth of play ahead of that competition. I think he wants to try and prove to Gareth Southgate that he is worth a gamble. It might take a couple of injuries elsewhere for him to squeeze into that squad. But the way he started the campaign, I don't think he'll be far away, because he was, his level of performance. And
he wasn't given a chance at Chelsea, and they chose to play the new signings, and it didn't work out. So he went to Aston Villa on loan, and in all fairness, that relationship he's got with Jack Grealish, they complement each other so well, because even though they're similar in terms of their creativity, the tenacity, if you're defending against those two players, it's similar to Fernandes and Pogba. Which one do you double up on? Because one of them will drop deep and the other will go forward. One of them might go wide and the other one will go central. You can't pick up these two players. And because they play with such verve, it's very, very difficult to mark them out the game or to keep tabs on them. But for me, Ben, the most important player in that Villa squad is actually Luiz, because in the middle of the park, he's been absolutely immense. I'm shocked how he doesn't get the plaudits that he deserves. He's been immense for him. Last season, he was a gladiator. Okay, started the season pretty slow, but his range of passing, the tenacity, his tackling, he reminds me. In fact, he doesn't even actually remind me of a Brazilian midfielder. He reminds me of an Argentinian midfielder. He's got that aggression in him. So,
I mean, look, what they say, you don't know what you've got until it's gone, and we'll soon find out against Burnley tomorrow night. Fortunately,
they'll need him in a game like that, because Burnley will not. They're not afraid to stick the boot in, and you need that steel in the middle of the park.
Concern for Villa. They obviously brought Ramsey in at the weekend. I think that was his first Premier League start. you're then practically bringing somebody else in from the cold. You've got Hourahan that could drop in there. You might play McGinn in a more central role. I know Trezeguet is also out injured with a hamstring. So Villa picked up a couple of little niggling injuries at the wrong time of the season. But it's that middle of the park, like you say, that will be a key battle because you know what Burnley are about. They're going to keep things tight. They're going to get men behind the ball. They're going to make it hard to break down. And, Sean Dyche will have his team pumped up for that one. But looking at my team, like I say, I'm definitely with you on Timo Werner. I agree the fact that is it 5 games now that he's blanked, and there's and money's tied up in that. And where I'm carrying Diego Jota, so he is a player that will have to go at some point. And I'm carrying over 2 free transfers. So looking at those options, it could be a downgrade in from Werner to somebody like maybe a Wilson, or in and around that 6.5 or 7, and then a slight upgrade on Jota. And I could be going maybe somebody like Zaha.
Do you look at the games at the weekend and think, right, this team are playing that team, and there's going to be more opportunities for this one, so I'm going to try to find the best player from that team and focus the attention on that? Because, as I said, for me, Richarlison has to be the one to come in because of who Everton are playing. That's the way I'm going to run with it this weekend.
When I'm looking to bring in a player, I'm basing not on a 1-week punt. I'll be looking at a 6-game week return. So, I'm looking at fixture difficulties 5 to 6 game period. And when you're looking at the fixture difficulty, I've got a decent-ish run. The big question mark or the difficulty one you would think would be the Manchester City, but that is at Goodison Park, so that's not too bad. But then they've got, they're playing the likes of West Ham, Villa. They've got Arsenal this weekend. Fixture-wise, if I was purely doing it on the fixtures, who would I be tempted by? Definitely United. If they're going to do this season, if they've got any chance of getting themselves out, it would be, over this Christmas period. They're playing Brighton, they've got Burnley, they've got Palace, and they've got Newcastle. Everton sandwiched in between that is their big game this week for them, Yorkshire Derby against Leeds. So there'll be a few fireworks in that. They then travel to the King Power, but then it's Wolves in Aston Villa. But then they're blank, and then they've got week 19. So they're currently blanking in week 18. So even look at some of those players with one eye on that double game week as well. At the minute, we have Burnley, Chelsea, Fulham, Leeds, Leicester, Liverpool, and Manchester United and Southampton. And, all involved in 2 fixtures in that game week. So maybe something in and around that. Keep your chips in hand. We obviously got a wild card, which will renew on January the 1st. So, if the team does require a major overhaul, then I've certainly got that in the bank. I mean, in terms of chips and wild cards, how are you sitting with those at the moment? Have you got any in hand?
Well, I haven't used my free hit and I haven't used my wild card. So I don't know if I need to use my free hit yet. I haven't felt the need to, in all fairness, because I've been pretty lucky from an injury standpoint, even a suspension standpoint. But again, with Gabriel being suspended, I'll have to go 3 at the back and probably slot in Neves, or maybe even put Ollie Watkins and play a 3-4-3. So I'm okay in that respect. I have the bench to be flexible.
I mean, not tempted to bust your wild card, and knowing that, in what would be a matter of 2 weeks' time, you will lose it.
I'm probably going to wait for this weekend, Ben, to see how the injuries go, because I've got 3 Spurs players, and tonight they're playing Liverpool. which is going to be very, very intense. In fact, it is intense. Should I say not? Should be. It will be, because they're playing right now about 50 minutes into the game. But who have they got at the weekend? They've got Leicester at home. Another game where they're playing against a side that will defend deep this time. There'll be more time on the ball in wide areas. Leicester will try and play full Spurs to play wide. Leicester play very narrow, especially on the counter-attack. So it's going to take quite a bit out of Spurs. So I don't know if today or tonight they're going to pick up injuries or knocks against Liverpool. I haven't seen anyone go down yet, which I guess is all right. But yeah, I'm going to wait till the end of this weekend to see what the injury table is like, and then if I need to use my wild card, I'll use it. But again, I haven't felt the need to do it just yet, because I haven't had to. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
With injuries, so look, at the moment I'm on 26 points at this moment in time. But I think the only player I've got left to play is Ollie Watkins, who's playing tomorrow, I believe. Yes.
Well, I'm sitting slightly behind on that. I mean, it's been a poor game week so far. I'm sitting on 21. I only have Harry Kane involved tonight. So coming tomorrow, I have Harry Maguire. I have Martinez in goal, and I've also got my set and forget captain, Marcus Rashford. So, if I can survive some of the big hitters tonight, I mean, Salah scoring, goal deflected and then in off the post, that'll hurt the overall rank. But generally, you know what, if it stays at ones each, then I can pretty much handle that, because and then we roll on to Manchester United and hope that Bruno doesn't bang, because he was, I think the Brunos, the Salahs, but Manchester City burnt a lot of FPL managers this weekend, because everybody was steaming in to Kevin and Jesus, thinking that they were going to hit the baggies for 4, 5, or even 6, and that didn't come to fruition. So that was good to see some of those premiums banking in that game. But yes, my friend, all good. Short, snappy, and sweet.
Before we wrap it up, is there one player in your team who you believe has, I won't say carried your team, but you've been quietly impressed with in terms of their points return?
I've had Harry Kane in since game week 1. So when his ownership was, in and around 5 or 6%, nobody wanted Harry Kane at the start of the season, and then even less so after the home defeat to Everton on the opening weekend. Everybody was like, talking about having Mayor. They got it, but he was almost a set and forget. I looked at his form during Project Restart. I think there was only Mikel Antonio who scored more goals than him there. And, he was 60, 70% fit. He was coming off a long-term injury. And my thought was, if Harry Kane gets anywhere near to the levels in terms of his fitness where he should be, then he's going to bang. And so Harry Kane in that respect. And also, I think I brought in Ben Chilwell just before he started back. I think he returned... I think he's returned every week bar one since I brought him in. So maybe 6 or 7, maybe 6 out of 7 game weeks, or 7 out of 8. So he's been a great one. But yeah, it's Sir Harry.
Fair enough.
I would say.
Fair enough. Yeah, mine is obviously Calvert-Lewin. He's been keeping me afloat, but I've got to give a special mention to Carl Walker-Peters, a regular at Southampton. Was out of favour at Spurs, fell in pecking order behind, Aurier. And now Doherty obviously is coming in the summer, but he joined Southampton about the time anyway. But I think he's been fantastic. He's made that right back spot his own. He got me another 2 points tonight. So I'm pleased with him.
Really I looked at Walker-Peters. The only reason I decided against, and I went on the opposite flank, I went Bertrand. And I know he used 0.5 more, but I just seen that attack and return potential as being worth that extra 0.5. And also, he's more of a differential. And I like people who follow my FPL stuff, know the fact that I go anti-template. So any players who've got high ownership, I don't bring them in. And get them when the carry Canes when it's nice and low. but one Walker Peters, I think, was already up there of 14, 15%, which is too rich for me.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
A solid pick. But a solid pick.
Excellent.
Enjoyed it, mate.
Likewise, mate. Likewise.
Good chatting FPL. Just a little bit of light-hearted banter, just for a change.
There you go. There you go. There you go. Can we just discuss what I told you? What's happening in Cyprus at the moment?
You can, mate. Of course, you can.
So, for those of you watching or listening, I support a team called Omonia, based in Nicosia, and we played our rivals Upwell last Monday. And as it turns out, Upwell fielded 4 players who had COVID. And I'm laughing because this whole thing has become a massive mess. So the news leaked on Tuesday morning to the press that Upwell had played these players knowing that they were positive. In Cyprus, when you have a COVID test, you get a text on your handset within 6 hours. So they'd have known. If it's the club that got the information or the players, they'd have known. So why would you play these players? Anyway, so Omonia had their COVID test on the Wednesday, sorry. They flew out to Eindhoven for the Europa League game. They had another test. All of them were negative. They came back to Cyprus on the Friday morning. They went to Larnaca Airport, where they were put in a room with another 150 people who were waiting to have their COVID test done. All right. So the sporting director went absolutely crazy, having a go at the airport security, saying, why are you keeping us in the room with these people? If we're infected, they will catch it, and vice versa. The COVID tests were done at the airport. Apparently 6 Omonia players and 1 member of staff had tested positive, but people who I know within certain areas of the club were telling me that the club decided to do the test themselves because the staff who did the tests at the airport support Anorthosis, which is another rival club, and they believe that they falsified the records because 6 players that were diagnosed with, or should I say tested positive, according to their records, were key players, right? So, long and short of it is, only 3 Omonia players were tested positive for COVID. At this moment in time, Upwell, who at the beginning of the week had 4 players, they're now up to 18 players and members of staff.
Jesus, wow.
18. And today, this is how I'd say petty or hilarious, whichever way you want to see it. Upwell meant to be playing another team in Limassol at the weekend, and it went to the Cypriot FA a vote. Every team in the first division had to vote whether the game would go ahead or not. Every team said no, the game shouldn't go ahead, apart from one, which is Omonia. They said no, play. Play. And the reason why they said that is because they believe that Upwell have played the players deliberately so that Omonia players could get COVID. And on top of that, rumour has it, which again, I don't know whether it's true or not, I've just heard it from a different source, is that the Upwell players were instructed by the owner to swap shirts with Omonia players at full time on the Monday.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's all going off. It's all going off.
I mean, is this like a regular occurrence in Cypriot football? Is that?
Okay, I'll tell you another story. There's a team called FC Buffer, and they played Upwell a couple of months ago. And Cameron Toshak, you know John Toshak, they used to play for Liverpool.
Yes.
His son was Buffer's head coach. They went to Upwell, a team that they beat 1-0 last season, but they hadn't beaten them in 5 or 6 years. And they beat them 1-0 again, but with 10 men. And at full time, all the players were cheering. They were celebrating in the dressing room. The club's owners came in, absolutely fuming. Don't know why. 12 hours later, Cameron Toshak was sacked. Story is, or should I say the rumour is, Upwell had paid Buffer to throw the game. The manager didn't get the memo or didn't pay attention to the memo. The players went and won the game, and Buffer didn't get their money. So he got sacked in the morning. These things happen in Cyprus, honestly. It doesn't surprise me. When I tell people such as yourself, you're like, what the hell's going on? But this is a regular occurrence. There's a player that played for my team on Monaco called Macata, is a Portuguese player. And they sold him a few seasons ago, and there was a party that they sold him. The reason being is that he was accepting bribes to throw games.
Yeah. And what are the repercussions or the ramifications of
listen, put it this way: it's very political, very, very political. And Upwell and Anorthosis are two of the three big clubs in Cyprus, and because they all have links with the government, it's very difficult to. Sorry, I was just watching Spurs just hit the post. It's very difficult. It's very difficult to get any fairness out there. And I know that a couple of years back, the ethics committee brought in 3 new people, and they said, right, we're going to clean up all the corruption, the bribery, referees being paid off, because that happens. In fact, a referee's car was blown up outside his house by a set of fans because he was giving another team decisions. It's happened. In fact, it's the second time this has happened. But yeah, they were brought in to clear all the corruption in Cypriot football. And today, all 3 of them handed in their resignation. And our owner, Papastavro, was basically telling us, said, no, you guys need to stay because you came in to clean up the job. And now it's time to stick by your word if you're serious about it. So it's all very political, but it's great to watch. It's great to watch, Ben, because for me, I write stuff on Cypriot football, and you know, I never run out of material. There's one club, they've sacked 2 managers already this season. They're in their 3rd manager.
And how many games into the season are
13.
Oh well,
so it's
never a dull moment.
Again, it's not a surprise. Upwell, who won the league 2 seasons ago, went into last season as champions. They appointed a new manager, Thomas Stel, that played for the German national team in the 90s.
Yeah,
he lasted 3 months. They sacked him. They brought in Kara Ingebrigtsen, a Norwegian manager that used to play for Sheffield Wednesday in the 90s. He lasted 47 days. They brought in an interim manager. He lasted 2 weeks, and they brought in another guy, a Greek manager, who they had 10 years earlier. He lasted 200 days. And he only lasted 200 days because of COVID, because they cancelled the season in March. So, you know, and this is the guy who, beginning of this season, they drew 0-0 against the newly promoted team, and he just turned around and said, well, it's got nothing to do with me. It's the players that are on the pitch. So he just washed his hands clean of it. So, yeah, it's a big mess. But again, it's really entertaining to watch because you never run out of stories. I should send some articles over with the translations just so you can see what nonsense happens in that league. It's brilliant.
But we'll look forward to seeing those at Stel.
Yeah.
Look, always a pleasure, my friend.
My pleasure, mate. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we'll be back. I'm not sure what the schedule is, given we've got Christmas just around the corner, but we'll let everybody know. We'll get a couple penciled in and